work session. So I certainly believe that indicates the importance of the issue we're going to be discussing today. Before I get started, I do want to thank a lot of our team members who've had a part of this very comprehensive recommendation you'll see over the next couple hours. I can't thank enough Mike Gardner and the work of him and Bill Butler and our city engineering team. It's hard for us to take all of the amount of data and information and condense it to PowerPoint slides in just a few slides, and they've had the enviable task of trying to do that. Putting the presentation together, I want to thank Sarah Brigger-Gilmore and Huey Rudder and his team and that team for helping us try to put a message across that's digestible, not just by the City Council, but for the people of Tuscaloosa. Certainly want to thank Harley Standridge and her team for looking at the financing side of what we're going to be presenting later on in this presentation, and the City Attorney's Office. Again, recommendations like today, they don't come in isolation. They come because of the success of so many of our team members, and I certainly want to thank them for helping us put it together. I want to begin by talking about just rainfall. I pulled a chart for you from NOAA. I'll throw it over there, Mr. Lanier. You'll see on this chart, it looks at the average amount of rainfall just for the first few months of this year. The dotted line that you see on this graph is the historical average rainfall in a given year for that month. You can go through the chart and see. And then you begin to look at January, February, March, April, May, and June. When you look at May, it's staggering that the average amount of rainfall in May is normally 3.3 inches, and that month we received over 13.8 inches of rain. I also went back to try to find data points on the intensity of the rain. One of the most interesting data points I found, now it's for Alabama, it's not for Tuscaloosa, but since the 1950s, the intensity of the rain during thunderstorms has increased by 27%. So even not just the amount of rain has increased overall, but the intensity of rain. None of us in this room need a data point really to affirm this. We see it. We see it in our own communities. It just really feels like it's raining more, and the data's showing that. And it also feels like when it rains, the intensity is higher. And certainly that means that our city, as well as cities across the United States, are having to deal with this issue. So today you're going to see a recommendation that's really focused on short-term projects and long-term drainage projects. So the first part of this presentation, we're going to talk about the Neighborhood Drainage Fund and recommend a list of projects for that. The second part of the presentation, we're going to be talking about Noah's Ark 2.0. And I will get into more details in that in just a second. The video that you see playing, and I know Ms. Kirby, who's actually here, will find this familiar. This is some flooding that took place about 3 weeks ago in Academy Drive, which is in Mr. Crow's district. And I know Mr. Crow was actually out there that evening. This was a high rain event in Tuscaloosa. It certainly meets all the historical measures, and Mike Gardner and I have talked about this. Sometimes this 100-year flood or 500-year flood, I wish they'd really rethink how they categorize it, because it feels like every week we're having a 500-year flood. But just for reference, since that is the national standard, our system is built for a 25-year flood. But you can see what happened that evening out on Academy Drive.
Mayor, I'd like to point out,
Please.
in that video, the two on the left were from Academy Drive. The one on the far right is a video of Northampton, Hawthorne Circle in Northampton. So we do have two locations in this video, at Academy Drive neighborhood and Northampton neighborhood.
So the first set of recommendations is going to deal with the Neighborhood Drainage Fund, and where you see the raindrops that are on the map are the locations of the projects that we're recommending to the City Council. So the current drainage fund balance is $3.5 million. If you recall, the council adopted my recommendation just a few months ago to add $3 million into this fund. We're also proposing to the city council that we reallocate $382,000 from Juanita Drive and $500,000 from the public safety logistics. The Juanita Drive project is at closeout. The logistics has come in about $700,000 under budget. So we have available funding we believe that would really be good to place into neighborhood drainage. If the council adopted that, and my recommendations are based on that assumption, that we would have $4.38 million for neighborhood drainage for the following projects. So we would recommend Northampton, which Mr. Gardner just talked about in a second. That's $800,000. The reason why Northampton and Bellevue are highlighted because those projects have already been discussed by the city council themselves, and there's already been an indication that once funding was restored, those projects would be in line. So $800,000 for Northampton, $500,000 for the Bellevue Drive project, $1.2 million for the Academy Drive protected buyouts. This would be the buyouts of 3 properties. $3,500,000 for the 36th Avenue East Rainbow Drive culvert replacement. $300,000 for the 36th Avenue East drainage. $250,000 for the waterfall drainage improvements. $80,000 for the Oakdale drainage improvements, and $450,000 for the Beverly Heights drainage. So we're going to go through each one of these, and Mr. Gardner and his team are going to walk you through the engineering aspects of them. So first is the Northampton drainage. Go back and give you an overview of where that is. It's in Mr. Crow's district in North Tuscaloosa, just east of Watermelon Road. And Mr. Gardner, you want to walk them through the aspects of the project?
Yes, sir. So the slide that shows the red line is an approximate location of an alternate storm pipe route that we're proposing. What we're having in this location is severe flooding of the roadway, as you can see in the images. The storm structures are surcharging in the road. The water leaves and passes between, 2 neighbors' homes, enters a fairly large drainage channel that parallels, runs along Watermelon Road, and eventually crosses the road and goes into the Indian Lake neighborhood in the city of Northport. Our analysis is that the storm network there is too small. It's not able to handle the runoff. It's all under asphalt between homes, and so it makes it a difficult challenge to replace that in place. What we decided we want to do is to add an alternate route. You'll flip to that next slide, Mayor. So
That's Bellevue. That's the last slide on Northampton.
Sorry,
You want me to go back? Okay.
That's an approximate representation, but basically we'll want to capture that water before it gets to the street with another pipe. Run that pipe through the rear yard of the neighbors in Northampton, and that eventually get to the street and connect to the storm sewer that's along Watermelon. We're doing this design in-house. We're about 80% finished with construction plans. The next thing we'll be doing is communicating with the landowners that we need easements from and moving forward to bid.
Where does it go now, Mike?
So today there's a storm sewer pipe that runs between these 2 houses. You can see an inlet in the road here, and it comes down underneath the roadway, then it turns and it runs between these 2 residences in a pipe, gets out to the right of way of Watermelon Road, and there's a short segment of pipe here before it turns into a ditch. Our plan, and this is really in the right location, but it was run behind these homes, along the edge of the back side of these homes, and connect to that system that's here. The stormwater would have two directions to go, and we'd be providing the extra capacity to handle the storm.
The next project is Bellevue drainage. So that gives you an overview of where we're talking about. Mike?
Y'all are gonna hear me say CMP over and over and over through these presentations, and that stands for corrugated metal pipe. And it is a pipe product that was used pretty heavily in the sixties and the seventies. Tended to wane away from it, in the later years. The city actually, I guess the word banned the use of corrugated metal pipe in around 2007. It's a pipe product that's a little more economical, but its lifespan is judged or gauged by the acidity of the soil you put it in, the sediment runoff that transports through that pipe, degrades the coating, and eventually this pipe rusts. It just deteriorates and comes to pieces. And we're beginning to see more and more of this in projects or neighborhoods that were built in the 70s. Bellevue may be a little bit older than that. But the situation here is there's a 72-inch corrugated metal pipe that runs between two houses under the street, and then extends on the other side of the street probably another 80 or 100 feet. In a significant rain event back in June, the first 70 or 80 feet of this pipe, it was deteriorating, it collapsed, closed off the entrance. We had flooding happen at a residence, and then it also flooded the street as well. What we've done to this point on this project with Public Works help is we've removed that broken piece of pipe that was clogging the channel. It's just an open ditch right now. We need to replace that pipe. Along with that pipe replacement, we want to go ahead and do what we call line the existing corrugated metal pipe that's left. It's still good enough that we can salvage it. This pipe lining will extend the life of that pipe another 50 to 60 years. This is another project that our team has tackled in-house. We are actually going to receive bids on this project next week. We've secured the easements. We're ready to go with this.
And this will address Third Court East as well. That's this pipe was called the flood in Third Court East. When me and you met at, I think you went around to Bellevue.
This is a different location.
It's in Bellevue on the next road. I know it.
Yeah.
We went to the
It's
ditch.
down below that.
Right,
That's right. That water that we looked at
Right.
eventually gets to this.
Yes, that's right.
So,
Right.
The next project we're recommending is property buyouts in Academy Drive, 3 property buyouts in particular. Mike, you wanna touch on these?
Okay, so Academy Drive, again, a neighborhood built in the 70s. There's several issues in this neighborhood. Outlined there, we have the creek that overtops the banks, and also floods Stone River Road. When the water crosses Stone River Road, it isolates 27 homes on Stone River, Chickamauga, and Fredericksburg. Those people have no way out. So in the short term, what we want to do is a protected buyout. This is a residence of Limbaugh's, Kirby's, and the Goldsmiths.
Goldsmiths.
So
It's actually no
two of those residences are right there on Stone River. The Kirby home is on Antietam. And we'll talk a little later about the other issues in the Noah's Ark portion of this presentation.
One of the driving forces behind this was Mike and I looked at the engineering improvements you'll see in the Noah's Ark recommendation. The 3 properties that we're requesting purchasing, voluntary, by the way, even with the improvements that would be made, would not have prevented their flooding on 3 to 4 weeks ago, on the date this flooding happened. We also think that could be a good opportunity to limit the scope of future issues in that area. In the meantime, between the project happening from today and the project happening in the future.
So a little over a year ago, y'all authorized us and we proceeded with a study of the Academy Drive neighborhood as a whole. And the results of that study have indicated several of these issues that we're talking about. the insufficient capacity of the culvert under Stone River, just hydraulic efficiency of the channel itself, the bends, the debris that captures in it, those types of things. We'll talk a little more in detail about what's planned for Academy Drive in the north.
So the next project is 36th Avenue East and Rainbow Drive. Mike?
Guess what? We've got another corrugated metal pipe, that crosses under 36th Avenue East, just a little north of its intersection with Rainbow Drive, which is one of the streets that leads you into the Spring Hill Lake neighborhood. The image in the lower right-hand corner of the photo is a hole in the asphalt on the side of the road. That white stripe is the edge of the travel way. Again, we've got a joint failure in particular at this location, and it's allowing sediment to leave the roadbed surface into the pipe and travel on down with the water. So here, we're looking at a full pipe replacement across the road is what we need to do. Replace that corrugated metal pipe with a reinforced concrete pipe. Life expectancy of concrete pipes over 100 years. We've already begun negotiations with an engineering firm to scope of services, and we'll be coming to you with that here in the next few weeks.
Mr. Tyner will be in his 34th term when we have to replace that pipe again.
All right, I can't wait.
I have no doubt, Mr. Tyner, you will be.
All right,
36th Avenue East. Go ahead, Mike, I'm sorry.
The best way for me to give you a landmark on this is we're behind the Barclay dealership that fronts on Skyland. We have a sanitary sewer system that's running cross country in this area. Over the years, you can see what's happened with this stream channel, erosive effects. It's just a real erosive soil in this area. Point out to you the black pipe that you see in the upper image. That's one of our major sanitary sewer mains. What's happened over the years, and we're not sure how long this has been going on, but probably several years, 8, 10 years maybe. The erosion of the channel has exposed the pipe. It's left some of the pipe exposed in the air, and what's going to eventually happen is the way the pipe will collapse. It can't support itself. It doesn't have any more dirt to support it.
Right.
So we'd be looking at some significant sanitary sewer failure in this location. Here, we want to install some storm sewer to better manage this runoff and also do some armor or protection of the stream bank to stop the erosive efforts.
Next project is in the Waterfall neighborhood.
So this area here on Waterfall Parkway is the road that parallels Lake Tuscaloosa. There's a large accumulation of stormwater runoff as you head downhill on the road. It's on a fairly flat slope. And what happens is rain events, the water basically gets deep enough to cover the entire road. The last residence on this street before you reach the roundabout, the water's gotten so deep at that point that it overtops their driveway, runs down into their yard, into their garage, and then the image on the top left is the erosive effect of that water through their yard. You can see it's fairly significant. The solution here is we need to capture the storm sewer that's just beyond this home and bring it up the street. It's probably around 200 feet, maybe a little more, and install some inlets along that side of the street to capture that water and take it underground before it overtops and enters that property. We're doing, that's another project that we're doing the design in-house, and we'll be ready to take this one to bid early fall.
Oakdale?
All right, Oakdale, neighborhood probably built in the sixties. Several drainage ditches in the Oakdale neighborhood. And we started this project a year and a half ago, somewhere in that neighborhood. Phase one and phase two, were complete. And this neighborhood was developed with earthen ditches, splitting the property lines, running either in the rear yards or between two homes or whatever. Over the years, we've struggled with keeping those ditches free. They get overgrown, the grass captures any sediment that's headed down the channel, and then we end up with, water standing. You'll look at the image on the top, you'll see where the water's trying to leave the street and head down one of these grass ditches, and it's ponded up. Our solution is the image on the bottom, where we've gone in and we've concrete lined the ditch, smoothed out the grade. The channel is wide enough that our public works team can take a bobcat, some small piece of equipment, and very efficiently maintain it. So phase three of Oakdale is to finish the third ditch, finish that project off.
I can't say enough about our public works crews that actually built those drainage ditches. Selvin took me out there one afternoon, and to see what our men were doing was pretty phenomenal. So saved the city money, outstanding work by our team out there, and Mr. Green's crews. Beverly Heights.
Beverly Heights, if you're not familiar, is on the south side of University Boulevard. We're over in the Alberta City here. And the Alberta. Yes, sir. Alberta. Great route.
Yeah, great, that work.
Not summer snow.
The rectangle that you see outlined in red there is the area of concern or improvement. At Beverly Heights, we have a storm pipe system that captures the water that runs down a ditch and carries it under the street. Then it turns back into an open ditch. And basically the storm system's not carrying the water. It backs the water up in the ditch. You can see that it actually gets deep enough that it touches this house that's adjacent to the stream bed. Also overtops the road at this location. I think that's 31 Beverly Heights.
In other words, is that back by the railroad?
So we're north of the railroad, but
North of the railroad.
it is headed toward the railroad.
Yeah.
That lower end of the rectangle there, Counselor, is where it crosses under the road, and then the next thing it goes under is the railroad.
Right.
So again, this is a project that we're tackling in-house. The solution is to increase the carrying capacity of the storm system underneath the road. Probably do some ditch improvements along the way. The pipe that's underneath the roadway in the curve down at the lower end of the rectangle there is sufficient. It's able to carry the amount of water, but the next street up is not.
Any questions on Beverly Heights?
No, sir.
Okay, so any questions on the neighborhood drainage projects? So as you'll see with the Noah's Ark projects, we plan on putting these on the agenda of both public projects and finance. The finance portion of this would be for the Juanita Drive reallocation of dollars and the public safety logistics reallocation of dollars. The public projects would be for the approval of the projects. Assuming you get the other side of the house with finance done, then those projects will be ready to rock and roll. So the next,
What are we distinguishing between neighborhood drainage and
Noah's Ark
magnitude?
magnitude and long term, whereas these projects are immediate.
Neighborhood drainage, those are feasibly manageable near-term projects with money we've got. We can lay hands on that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And immediate. that you could go to your constituents and immediately know, when I say immediate, in the next 12 to 18 months. So you're being handed out, yes, sir.
Yeah, I got one. When this goes back, the short, there's the neighborhood drainage before we get to the longer term. When that goes back to projects and we'll talk about that, hopefully approve that. How do the home buyouts work? I mean, because I know we've had appraisals done, but how will, talk about that process, if we approve that, what happens?
Once you authorize the funding for it, and you're correct, with the Academy Drive ones in particular, we have already had appraisals done with the consent of the homeowners. If you approve the budgetary amount, and that budgetary amount is based off the amount of appraisals that we have
For the three.
for the three, we will then go and sit down and make an offer and begin that type of negotiation.
On your chart here, Mayor, RPN.
We're about to get into
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Can I ask Mike, in your opinion, those, the neighborhood drainage projects that we just covered, in your opinion, are those like the most immediate needs? How do we determine what's immediate and what's long term?
So several of these, most all of these, I think with the exception of Bellevue, which is, in my opinion, almost on the verge of being an emergency. Bellevue was the one where we had the pipe collapse. We pulled that collapsed pipe out, and we're gonna rehabilitate what's left and put that pipe back in. Most all of these have been on our list for a long time.
Okay.
Order of need and is one item that we looked at, and also the amount of money that we had to distribute to try to solve as many problems as we have.
And ultimately, as you'll hear me talk about Noah's Ark, it's for the council to determine it. This is a recommendation. The council has in its full discretion to say, we want to reorder this project or take this project out. And so that's actually a very good segue into talking about Noah's Ark 2.0. So I wanted to show you, and I'll pass it out, because I think Mr. Tyner and I are the only two that are still remaining from the first Noah's Ark that was recommended to the council in 2006 and adopted in 2007. Here is the legendary PowerPoint presentation that at the time I was the comm staff, so we did it here, and people today that I've shown already made fun of my handiwork here with the PowerPoint presentation. But you see here in Noah's Ark 1.0, I guess, was $27 million for roughly about 14 projects. That ended up being expanded to more than 20 projects across the city. It was able to resolve 2/3 of the funding complaints that we received at that time. And it took about 7 years from the point of Noah's Ark being passed by the council to it really being fully implemented. Now, some of that too, it's hard for people to describe, but April 27, 2011 really disrupted a lot of our rhythm here at the city, as you can imagine. But Noah's Ark played an important role in really allowing us to get caught up on many of the drainage issues within the city. And so really the timing's right for us again to be thinking about another Noah's Ark. The other thing that I want to pass out to you, because oftentimes we are asked about corrugated metal pipe, and somehow we are the ones who originated and invented that and then implemented it en masse. Mr. Tyner probably remembers, but when we recommended Noah's Ark back in 2006 and 2007, we actually recommended the end of corrugated pipe. And so I want to pass you what we adopted on June 19, 2007. And I don't know if Mr. Tyner remembers, but I remember the hue and cry from home builders.
Yeah.
But the city in 2007 made a very good decision to require concrete or steel piping when it came to storm drainage. And that decision will serve future councils well. But as you saw in that presentation, the things that occurred in the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s, I can assure you Mr. Tyner and I had nothing to do with it. We were both just trying to live our lives. But the thing is that I think you see that we have always worked to try to address storm drainage. When you look at the rain and the intensity of rain and what we're facing, it's probably going to continue to be our number one infrastructure issue that we face at the city. I went back and looked for the date, but in April of 2023, I actually met with Mr. Busby and Mr. Crow over at Mr. Busby's house for breakfast. And I don't know if you remember the conversation, but we actually started talking about storm drainage needs in Tuscaloosa. And, how should the city begin thinking about the large amount of storm drainage needs that were already coming out on our radar. From that discussion became this kind of internal debate about how do we want to go about addressing a multitude of needs across a city of 71 square miles. And so what you see today really is a culmination of a lot of discussions with you as council members, both collectively and individually. Certainly a lot of discussions internally with the city engineer staff, public works, and everyone that's involved. So the goal today is to give you a starting point. And I would ask that you do this, that you take your time and work through our recommendations and ask us a lot of questions, dig into the details, and let's make certain we get it right. Because none of us are perfect, and we were able to do that with the first Noah's Ark, and we made a huge difference across the city. Some of you will see some of the projects in that list, and they're no longer concerned. We should be very proud of that. My goal is in 5 to 10 years, the projects we talk about today are no longer concerned. So I'm really excited about presenting this to you today. I would also ask that you do this. We handed you out some handouts, but don't get too focused on that yet. Let us go through the presentation, and then we can circle back and work through all the details that you've been provided. So the first thing that we want to talk about today is the Gardner scale. Mike Gardner is going to immortality, but we have created the Gardner scale. And it gets to what Mr. Eatman was asking about. How do we determine which projects to recommend to the city council? So the project list that you have in front of you in the spreadsheets would be Mike Gardner's and the Gardner scale in order of how you would approach all the projects. Based off the criteria, the 4 criteria that you see up there: travel impediments, public infrastructure impact, nuisance disruption, and significant resident or business hardship. Now, when I get to my recommendation, you will see that I do not follow exactly the Gardner scale, because we have to also recognize other types of variables out there that go beyond just the world of engineering. And certainly that is, you represent constituents throughout an entire city of 71 square miles. And so if you were to find one immediate fault, and there's probably multiple faults because I'm not perfect and no one on this staff is perfect, is that the recommendation I'm making doesn't necessarily follow straight down the recommendation of the city engineer. But we felt like it was important that you get to see both and balance both as you're having your deliberations. So Mike, will you run through the RPA and then the RPN under the Gardner scale?
Yes, sir. I'll do my very best. Try to, first of all, I can't say enough about the team. We struggled for quite a bit of time, went through several iterations of how to objectively look at every issue that we knew about. And like the mayor said, we were objective in looking specifically at the problem, and those 4 items on that pie chart and how it affects our citizens, our communities, the areas of impact. And we created a number matrix that went from 0 to 69. And that y'all may say, well, how'd you come up with that? Well, remember, it's just a number. You know, we could have made it go to 100, we could have made it go to 500. But the important thing is to look at that chart and see where we place the amount of significance on what that storm event or flooding issue caused a resident or multiple residents. So we'll start at the top with the smallest part of the chart is a nuisance or a disruption. And that is something that maybe water gets in your yard. It doesn't get in your house, it's in your, it's along your fence line, it's in your flower bed, whatever. And when the storm's gone, there's no impact. So we rated that as to whether or not it was an individual home or more than one individual home. The next thing we looked at was what we call travel impedance.
Well, Mike, before you leave, that you're on the significant resident business hardship part of the donut now, the blue part.
Well, I was gonna jump around to travel impedance, but I can go clockwise. Let's just do that. That may be the simplest thing to do.
Okay, I was just gonna ask, I have some peculiar, what is density in that blue section of donut? I've got sections of the district that are 500 people per acre. And that's not representative, but it's present. Is that where you factor, I mean, to exaggerate the example, if a pasture that nobody lives in uses in floods, who cares? If a place floods where you've got 40,000 kids trying to drive cars through an intersection, that's a factor. Is that where that shows up?
Yeah, yes. So,
Or actually, that may be travel impedance.
right. So, let's move from the
Okay.
nuisance disruption to travel impedance. We think that's the second or the next level of a flooding event. One is it gets in your yard. The next one is, well, it's in my yard, but it's in the street too. And it's causing us a hardship to get in or to get out. So when we started looking at travel impedance, we gave it about 4 categories. If it's a local road in a neighborhood and all it causes is a little minor disruption, the score was a little low or lower. And then as we went up graduating scales, it was based on the amount of traffic on the road or the road's street classification. You know, a collector or an arterial, or we got all the way up to a highway. If you're familiar, you know, McFarland Boulevard floods under the railroad track and you can't pass. So that would be part of, you know, a limited access highway that's got travel impedance. The other thing we looked at was what's the degree of difficulty of a detour? If we have a road that's closed because it's flooded, and we're in a grid system like downtown, around the YMCA, yeah, that road floods. But it's very easy to maneuver a very short distance around that one flooded section. The alternate example of that is what I mentioned in Academy Drive. In that Watertop Stone River Road, there are 27 homes that can't get home, or they can't get out, or the emergency vehicle can't get to it. So it took the highest significance, or the highest number that we put in our scale. If you can't get in and you can't get out, that's paramount. So, I want to talk next about the significant resident business hardship. And really what that means is you get wet. You get water in your home. You get water in your business. It could be the crawl space, or it can be on your finished floor, your carpet, your tile, whatever. But if you're getting wet, we felt like that put more significance in how do we address that, because then we're talking about property loss. We're talking about a homeowner spending money to repair the damage that the water's caused in some shape, form, or fashion. And then finally, the green segment, public infrastructure impact. There we looked at what is the risk to our public infrastructure. And and what it might do to it, potentially. And so we had to make educated guesses, but we're obviously like the storm sewer that I mentioned, there behind Barton. You know, there's a risk, and we're gonna lose that sewer if we don't use it. Those, and we categorized them into two segments. If we felt like it was gonna cost less than $500,000 to fix, we got a point number. If it was gonna cost you more than $500,000 to repair, we got a higher thing. So that's how we tackled this. And then we took a mathematical formula and we converted that number to a scale that got no higher than 10. So when you look at your sheet there, you'll see a number less than 10, greater than 0. And that's how we did it.
So
I'll answer any question you got, won't be going any farther.
it probably will help, let me just, and we can circle back to the rating scale as we go through each one of these projects. But again, the list that you have in front of you is strictly the city engineer's recommendations of order of magnitude of projects. So, it was then my job to bring you a recommendation that not only fit in what the needs of the city were, as categorized by the city engineer, but what's the city's fiscal capacity to take on all of these projects. So we're recommending a $45.7 million bond issue. Before I go into specifics, I want to make this clear, because something all of you have pressed me on individually is that you would like to see Elevate be used as the primary funding source for doing this. And certainly, I believe that considering the magnitude of it, I think that is going in the right direction. But doing so will mean projects that are scheduled in 30, 31, 32, 33, things that we had out long-term, we will have to reprioritize. Which, by the way, is a decision that I support. This is a need. I support this need. You've asked me to come and work with you on this, and I want you to know that's in large part your advocacy and the work of our staff is how we arrived today. But it will mean that other things that we have planned, we will need to push down the road. But that's okay. That's why we got elected. We got elected to make decisions. We got elected to change with variables. You know, things change, you have to react to it. And so I want to give that caveat before I go into more detail with this recommendation. And I do think that probably needs to be part, Mr. Busby, within Finance Committee, a discussion. So we get this, we lose that.
Yeah.
But it's no different than our family budget.
That's good.
It's no different than what we have to do at home. So I want to start at the bottom and work my way up. You will see that we are asking for 15 million of the 45.7 to be dedicated to 3 items. 5 million to overall contingency. Each project has its own budget contingency. We're asking for a contingency on top of that. We always know there's always going to be that project that there's something we don't know just based off cursory engineering or a cursory observation. There's going to be that surprise. There'll be good surprises, but there'll also be bad surprises. The second is property buyout. A couple projects that I did not include that are on Mike's list is because I do think there may be a better and more effective opportunity to buy properties out than to go invest millions for a project that may only impact 1 or 2 or 3 particular homes. Again, doesn't mean we have to, it just gives us that flexibility in doing it. The last is grant consideration. There's 1 or 2 projects that are either recommended or not included. There may be some grant opportunities. So setting aside 5 million that maybe we could use as a 10 or 20% match on another grant opportunity. That's one of the things with Noah's Ark that we didn't do, and I took that lessons learned and I applied it here. So those would be three things that we would request as part of this overall recommendation. Now let me go to the top, and we're gonna go through each project and explain why it's being recommended.
Walt, can I ask you a quick?
Yes, sir.
Did we not apply for something with UA for Cribs Mill Creek? Like for a grant? Did we not do something with them for that, Carla?
We did, but we were not awarded.
So we were not, so there's nothing, because I mean, to me, that's a big issue too. I mean, but are we still in the process of potentially applying again?
Mr. Leopard, who headed that for UA, is no longer in UA. And the state actually put in, some money as well to that. In talking to Mr. Gardner, that's something we would certainly like to resurrect again, because that is a large-scale project that runs through the heart of the campus and would have a huge impact.
But I just wanted to ask about the grant. I don't think we've discussed that we didn't get the grant. I know there's been a lot of changes over that stuff.
From the flooding he talked about at McFarland where the railroad was over, from there all the way west, essentially down or parallel to that railroad track, through all those neighborhoods, is part of that grant application, is a huge basin. It includes Hackberry going north down 12th Street and 13th Street. Again, all the way down. We had remember we had trains literally floated off the tracks. Remember at 10 o'clock that Friday night, two trains off the track, or excuse me, they were on the tracks, but they couldn't go. Right there by the hospital. We've got Parkview.
The $5 million grant match, that is the project that comes to mind. We certainly,
For that.
yes, we certainly see that as, putting together that team again of AlDOT, because they're really responsible for that intersection of 82. The university and certainly the city. The railroad, although they do play a role in this, has said
They said it's your water.
Yeah. So
Our property, but it's your water. Tim, of course, was essentially the kind of lead point of contact for that, and that's
I
his
didn't need to go down that rabbit
departure.
trail, but I know that's something
the
that we were trying to get grant money for. That's what I wanted to figure out where was all that.
and here's the hard part with anything like the recommendation we have to you today, and the hard part you will have in forming your own work on this, is if you have X amount of dollars, and so that project would be very expensive, and you would have to put so much into that project, you couldn't do other things across the city.
The reason I asked the question was because I figured we might not have considered any of that because there was outstanding grant potential. That's really the reason I asked the question. Because I know we had talked about that a bunch of projects and we haven't talked about it, but it's an important project. Sorry for that.
No.
I digress.
No, this is what the work session's for.
Yeah.
So the projects we're recommending are Academy Drive, which includes Stone River, Manassas, and Fredericksburg, $3.75 million. And we're gonna go into detail on each one. Eastover at $2.5 million. 10th Avenue and 19th at $6.8 million. Heritage Hills Phase 1 at $1.1 million. I do wanna put a caveat on that one, Mr. Crow, because we do think, although we just ran out of time to today, it might be a property buyout, may be a better solution there, but it just hasn't been studied enough to give you a recommendation. The largest scale project that you see in this recommendation is gonna be Cypress Creek, phases 2 and 3. I believe this extends a little bit into Ms. Howard's district and primarily in Mr. Lanier's district. Rosewood, Linwood at 2.5, Riggs Road and 31st Street East and Lincoln Park Drainage, both of those would be in District 1. So let me go through the recommendations and let Mike talk to you about their score and what the concept for improvements would be today. So Mike?
Okay, I need to ask a question for the last one that we talked about, the very first list we had. Is this on top, like Academy Drive, is this on top of,
This is in
Okay.
addition to the property by
that's why
That's coming out of that.
Beverly Heights is not on this thing. It's already on the other.
That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So, here you can see the rating, this one scored the highest of everything that we scored. And, the two main reasons is one, the travel impedance that we mentioned, isolates 27 homes, and we have houses, that are getting flooded. So, of those two major categories, this would check both of those boxes. The estimate here is $3,750,000. I think I mentioned earlier, we'd already engaged a consulting engineer who's provided us a drainage study for the entire corridor, all the way from McFarland, where it crosses under and goes to Indian Hills, all the way up to Rice Valley Road, excuse me, Rice Valley. In this $3.75 million, we are addressing three particular issues. The inadequate culvert under Stone River Road. We're going to more than likely end up with a bridge there. The inefficient channel hydrology was a component of the study. As that channel moves south from Stone River Road toward McFarland, it makes some very sharp bends and turns. And think about it just like you drive your car. You got to slow down to take a sharp curve. Well, the water's doing the same thing. And when it slows down, it creates tailwater and backs the water up at a higher elevation further up the stream. So we're going to address that as well. The storm system that is at Manassas Avenue cuts across a few neighborhood yards and ultimately goes across Antietam and empties into the creek. Good old corrugated metal pipe. We have a segment there that we've done a couple of minor repairs on a little sinkhole in a residence yard. There's a convoluted number of pipes that it goes from a larger pipe to a smaller pipe, back to a bigger pipe. And the analysis here is that we are probably going to add another storm line to this system and take it down Manassas and down Shiloh and empty it into the creek. Very similar to what I mentioned about Northampton. We'll have a pipe network that goes two directions and allows water to go in both and alleviates the flooding problem. And obviously, we're going to be addressing the deteriorating corrugated metal pipe either through lining and or replacement. Any questions on that one? I failed to mention there's a pipe on Fredericksburg that's, it needs to be lined. We can salvage that corrugated metal pipe. There is one that's beginning to get deficient on Fredericksburg that we'll line it as well. All right, Eastover. In Eastover, we have a significant flooding problem at the intersection of 36th Street East and 37th Street and 38th Street. There may be a slide that represents that as well on the next page. There you go. So some pretty severe roadway flooding indicated in those photos. Again, we've got corrugated metal pipes scattered throughout this neighborhood. Our public works team has made point repairs and patched the road at least twice in the last 18 months that I'm aware of. And I think that's all right. So in this plan, we'll be replacing the pipe that's deteriorated with concrete pipe. We'll be looking to improve the efficiency of the storm system by increasing the pipe's capacity, doing some pipe replacements. We have some ditch sections that need to become more efficient and also protected better than what they are today, and creating some more surface inlets to allow this water to get into the system. That project is under, design with consultants, and we're expecting preliminary plans, next month. 10th Avenue and 19th Street. This issue really begins at the very southwest corner of the Central High School campus, there at 17th and Black Bear Way on 10th Avenue. That's basically where the storm network begins, travels south, down 10th Avenue, works its way through a couple of neighborhood houses. Ultimately, it ends up on Hargrove Road, and the final discharge is into a creek or ditch along the east side of Bonita Terrace. We have had a study prepared by a consultant, and based on their recommendations, we go to the next slide if you don't mind, just give you a little magnitude. The top right photo, you're looking at 10th Avenue there. Looking across the street at 10th Avenue, I think you're on 19th, looking across the street, and the police car's on the other side of 10th Avenue. 10th Avenue flooded in that image. The image below is a house on 19th Street that's impacted by this flooding. And then the top left image is the channel that I mentioned that's adjacent to the east side of Bonita Terrace. And it's suffering from a lot of scour and erosion. You know, ultimately that sediment's going somewhere, probably potentially causing some issues farther downstream. Here we will be looking at replacing the pipe networks that are deteriorating, increasing our pipe capacity, improving the inlet capacity where water can leave the street and get into the system, and lastly, regrading and stabilizing the channel in the Bonita Terrace network. Heritage Hills Phase 1. This is the western side of the Heritage Hills neighborhood. This one has issues with water on top of the streets. We do have one resident who has suffered the consequences of water damage in their home. If you look at the next slide, so the bottom image is obviously a roadway flood. We've got to deal with that. The two photos on the top are images. This is obviously after the rain event, but the water subsided some, but you can see that it's into that person's home. We've analyzed this system. This is another project that our team has taken on in-house. There are segments of the pipe network that are sufficient. There's other segments of the pipe network that's inadequate. So the plan is to go in and make those improvements to the storm system, create better opportunities for the water to get out of the roadway. We're on target to probably bid this one right after the first year. Cypress Creek Phase 2. We came before you a few months ago, and we actually called this Cypress Creek Phase 8. And that dates back to 2013. Our consultant did a holistic study of Cypress Creek all the way from 36th Avenue to Highway 69. And they broke it up into a multitude of phases or segments. We simplified this, and we decided we would change Phase 8 to Phase 2. And then Phase 3 is going to be the rest of it.
Right.
All right, so for Phase 2, that is from the west side of McFarland Boulevard, Long Creek Channel to Longview Drive. And this will be, stream bank protection, improvements, also shoring up the infrastructure that we have in this area. We got some sanitary sewer that runs parallel to the system, to the storm system, and also crosses it in a place or two. This will also, stop some erosion loss. Go to the next slide there. So here you can see, you know, the degradation of the stream over time, you know, riprap plume that's followed in. It's just characteristic of what's happening along this entire stream channel, not just what we're calling phase 2. This project is under design for phase 2, and we should be receiving something from the consultant engineer on it shortly. So Cypress Creek Phase 3, this estimate's $9.6 million. It's about 1.2 miles. And quite a few things that'll happen, but the majority of what we'll be doing here is bank stabilization. Give us the opportunity to go in here under a permit issued by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We'll be able to remove trees and roots that are impediments to the flow of the water, set up some you know, channel protection measures. There's a box culvert that we need to add under a roadway to improve hydraulic efficiency as well, and some sediment cleanup. That pretty much encompasses what phase 3. And again, it goes from Longview Road all the way to Highway 69 South. Rosewood Linwood. Mayor, I don't remember for sure whether phase 1 was a Noah's Ark project or it was a Noah's Ark. So, I actually did that. Phase 2 of this is going to be a continuation of what was done. I think this was in 2014 or somewhere in that neighborhood. But we're concrete lining a channel. If you remember, Mr. Green's been before you a couple of times over the last few years. We do a clean out. We call it the Southern Gardens pipe clean out. A lot of sediment loss in this channel. And what the city has done over the past is concrete line this. This is the last piece that needs to be lined. Roughly 800 feet. One more slide on that. Okay, basically nothing else to show. Once this is complete, it will connect to the ditch that's paralleling and running along the railroad right away. And fortunately for us, they did a good job of protection of their ditch about 2 or 3 years ago, where they from Kicker Road back west to where this project's going to terminate. They've done a pretty good job of riprap. So this should greatly minimize any type of corrosive efforts that we're having to clean out in the future. So the next one is Riggs Road and 31st Street East. The area you see encompassed in red.
That's not east, is it?
I'm sorry,
No, that's not, that shouldn't be east.
did I say 31st Street?
Well, it's up there east, but
That's
it's
in the
not, yeah.
Oh, that's right, Dylan. All right,
It is.
31st Street.
Mr. Tyner's trying to expand his,
That's right. And put a fasten.
Greater Alberta.
Greater Alberta.
Johnson Road.
So if y'all are familiar with this area, you know, this is a very flat area, very little change or relief in the topography. Roadside ditches that, you know, been there forever, as long as the road's been there. Again, Public Works does a tremendous job of trying to maintain these, but areas where water ponds. Even in a small rain event, we end up with ponding water that can become, stagnant and potential health hazards. Our overview of this is that we need to go in and probably look at concrete lining at these ditches. Our preliminary investigation shows that some of the side drain pipes that, are accesses to driveways and some of the sidewalks that go to residences, they're not flowing in the proper direction, so we're including that in our design and the cost estimate that we're presenting there too. Just get that water to flow, and the water is flowing back to the east, and we'll enter a drainage channel that heads south toward tractor equipment. So the last one on our list here is Lincoln Park. A somewhat similar situation to what we just talked about on Ridge Road. You look at this is an image of some ditches that just don't drain well. You can see that the result of that is that it gets precariously close to home. I don't think it gets in the house, but it's obviously standing water, and then they're having the residents are having to wait for this water to dissipate. Our proposal here is that we need to take this road that doesn't have, curb and gutter or any drainage infrastructure, and let's turn it into a road with curb and gutter, proper storm drainage inlets, and tie it to the network that's
So those are the projects we're recommending. We know you're gonna, over the next few weeks, want to spend more time going through each project. Let me talk about funding this. This certainly can be funded through general fund, and underneath general fund is Elevate. How we want to work through that in the coming weeks, I want to sit down and talk with you about it. Noah's Ark was purely a general fund bond issuance that we knew we would incur debt, and ultimately what that means is at the end of the year, your surplus transfer is going to be a little bit lower depending upon what you believe the debt service to be. If you were today to say the $45.7 million, that's what we want to do, the debt service would be estimated $2.8 million, $2.9 million a year for 30 years. So that gives you a sense. If you do less, the debt service number obviously goes down. If you wanted to do more, that debt service number goes up. We certainly, we think that 2.8 is a good cap. Just kind of projecting out over the next 10 years. But that gives you a good starting point. We would not recommend, though, going to the bond market until 27 or 28. The reason why is, unlike a savings center where you get a bid, the bid, and gives you a clear idea of what you're going to go out, or a park. These are a series of projects that some will be ready to go to bid in 6 months, others may not be for 3 years. And so we would recommend waiting as long as we feel possible to go into the bond market till we begin getting bids in. And to do that, though, that would mean that we would want to look at getting a line of credit for engineering, potentially buyouts, and right-of-way acquisition. Right now, the current average interest rate out there is 4.9%, and we would repay ourselves once we issue the bond. This would give us the ability to go faster, get moving. Once we get a good sense of market, 27 or 28, then move forward with the bond issue. Carly, Ms. Standridge, is the one who put this snapshot together. Do you want to add or correct anything to this?
So yeah, current average interest rate really is from the bond issuance that we just did for Elevate, based on the Odom Park, Bowers Park issuance we just did literally a week ago. And so that's the most current interest rate for the bond projection. The line of credit, I think the mayor was talking about doing about $15 million in a line of credit to be able to get moving on the engineering and the buyouts. and we would need to do some preliminary work for reimbursement resolutions in order to know that we can pay ourselves back once the bonds have been issued.
So that is the recommendation to you. We would recommend we start working committee. Now this is big. You don't do this a lot. In my 20-year career, this is only the second time. So this is something we certainly would. There's no urgency in terms of approving the large scale projects. I would say the neighborhood drainage projects, if we could get priority moving on those first. If the council's gonna prioritize, we'd rather deal with those neighborhood drainage projects first, get them going, because we can get some short-term impacts made there, and then turn to Noah's Ark. Again, I wanna thank our team members who've worked the last 6 to 7 weeks putting this together. I wanna thank you. I think I've met individually with each one of you on this subject, and appreciate your input. I don't envy the task now you have, but we wanna work with you and provide you whatever you need as you begin making your decision. So,
Well, question,
Mr. Crowe?
do you, in the budget that we will see in just a handful of weeks, are you putting money back into neighborhood drainage outside of this for the next budget year?
The only two, no, that we do the neighborhood drainage when we get the annual surplus
In the capital?
in the capital.
Would you anticipate that depending on what that is, we would probably replenish some money in that
Oh, absolutely.
most of the year? Because the reason I'm asking that is I think there are some of these projects that we've looked at over the last year that we probably could fund a little bit and maybe add some other things in it. And I'm thinking specifically, selfishly, in my district, there's one in Academy Drive that is a potential sinkhole that we've been looking at, Miss Tootle, for example. I know that's in that, but it might be something we could get before we had to do a bond.
I will caution the council about depending on the surplus amount for capital improvements that you have been used to the last few years about having excellent surpluses. And as we all know, the general economy has kind of flatlined. Our revenues are not growing the way they have in the last few years. So I would really caution the reliance on a surplus amount to possibly do a large scale amount of drainage like we did this last year.
Well, Mayor, thanks.
Caveat, sorry.
Mike, thank you and your team. And Mayor, this
It's a lot of work.
feels like some of the most productive, rewarding work that we do right here. It really does. And so it's been a long time coming, and I appreciate what y'all are doing. The finance looks forward to working out the best ways to come up with the money. I'd be floored if the decision of the council is whether to proceed or not. I think the question is gonna be, what's the best way financially between line of credit and any other inflows into the general fund or elevate that we have. And then if there comes a point where we hit some of these big ones and there's necessary to do a bond issue, just that we do like we've been doing and keep the credit rating agencies appraised and abreast of what our plans are. But again, and if we need more work sessions, this is good stuff to be working on.
I did have one question, Mike, Mayor. I know we looked at some issues down Johnson Road, 67, 68, down Taylor Circle area. We went down and looked at some issues. Where does that fall? I know we got a lot of residents down that way. I've been getting a lot of calls from. I know I didn't notice it on the list.
The list that you got is everything that we've estimated that is $5,000 and above.
$500,000.
Okay.
That is on our list. It's just not on the list that we.
Okay.
Then that brings up a good point, and I should have put it in my notes. We talked about Taylor Circle, and we thought, well, maybe the buyout portion of this might be a better solution. We talked about, we call it the YMCA project. You got a $11 million solution, but maybe it's
$300,000 or $400,000 Band-Aid that'll last for a while.
And so, you know, that's what we were thinking with Taylor Circle, that we could spend 3 or 4 million, 5 million, maybe not even solve the problem. And so those are the kind of things that we went through our calculus. And those are the kind of discussions I would encourage you to have with Mike and myself in the weeks ahead, just to say, okay, this didn't make the list, why? And
I encourage all of y'all to do that.
yeah, and that's a judgment call. You know, you try to make the best judgment, and you just, you know, you believe it's the right decision. So it's certainly one that I think in Taylor Circle, we did, it should be in that Noah's Ark. I wanna say it was 1 point something million.
It was a Noah's Ark project.
Yeah,
Like 1.2, something in that neighborhood.
it didn't make the dent that we thought it to, because that area is just so flat as a pancake. If you haven't been down the Taylor Circle, the drainage ditches actually look like sidewalks. You know, we walked around that in Riggs Road too.
Didn't we have some developers that we insisted they raise some of that up with the bill some time back?
So there was a planned development in Royal Pines, another phase of Royal Pines. And you're exactly right. Knowing our history with the Royal Pines neighborhood, those plans actually came from Office for the LDP. They never went anywhere, but
Okay.
that was a condition.
Okay.
I know they're getting a lot of standing front yard water on there. I mean, we kinda,
It's
they got,
always been
yeah.
like that from the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember going down there when it was brand new.
Yeah. I'll talk to you about it. We don't have to talk about it right now. I'll schedule something.
And one of the discussions the council may wanna have is, do you wanna increase the number of buyouts? Or do you wanna, again, and I can't underscore this enough, this is one idea. There may be, I'm smart enough to know there may be better ideas, better ways to stack this. And so hopefully this gets a really good discussion going.
I think it'll get plenty of discussion going. Again, the easy part's gonna be proceed. The hard part's gonna be when we all pull out knives and shovels and start arguing over proceed and whose district is what. Factor in the Mike Gardner's RPA.
Mike, you know,
I hadn't been this happy
with you about that 8th Street East, and I know you don't have a price on it yet, but I know it's not gonna be anywhere near a 500,000.
It's not, it's on the list. It is on the list.
So I thought it
Didn't reach the
I
threshold
got
of
our
500.
no, I knew it wasn't, but maybe we can update it a little bit tomorrow when we have our engineering meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Look forward to next week.
We didn't have any, we didn't actually have a committee, so no way to adjourn. So we'll see everybody at 5.